The shuttle hit the ground hard. Metal screamed against rock as sparks flew in every direction. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison held onto his seat with both hands, his body jerking forward as the safety straps dug into his chest. The viewport cracked in a spiderweb pattern. Then everything went silent except for the hissing of broken systems. Jake sat still for a moment, breathing hard. His head hurt where it had knocked against something during the crash. He touched his temple and his fingers came away with blood. Not too much, though. He would live. He checked the shuttle's controls. Everything was dead. The main power was gone. Life support showed red across the board. The communication system sparked once and went dark. He was alone on Kelvar 7, a planet that belonged to the enemy. Jake grabbed the emergency pack from under his seat and pushed open the side hatch. It groaned but moved. He climbed out into the orange light of the alien sun. The shuttle had carved a long trench through rocky ground before stopping against a pile of boulders. Black smoke poured from the engines. He looked around. The landscape was rough and empty, full of broken stones and dead plants. In the distance, he could see the remains of buildings, some kind of settlement, destroyed in the fighting. The war between humans and the Threxians had torn up dozens of worlds like this one. Jake checked his weapons. His rifle had cracked in the crash, useless now, but his sidearm worked. He had 6 energy packs for it, not much. He also had water for 3 days, food for 5, and a basic medical kit. That was all. He needed to find shelter and stay hidden until a rescue team could locate his emergency beacon, if they could locate it. If the Threxians didn't find him first. The ruins looked like his best option. Jake started walking. It took him an hour to reach the settlement. The buildings were strange shapes, all curves and spirals. That was how the Threxians built things. Everything was damaged now. Walls had collapsed, roofs had fallen in. He could see burn marks from plasma weapons. Jake moved carefully through the streets. He kept his hand on his sidearm. Every shadow could hide an enemy soldier. Every sound made him freeze and listen. Then he heard it, a small voice crying. Jake stopped. That was impossible. This place had been bombed weeks ago. Everyone should be dead or evacuated. But he heard it again, a weak, frightened cry. He followed the sound to a collapsed building. Part of the roof had fallen onto the first floor, creating a pile of broken material. The crying came from underneath. Jake put down his pack and started moving pieces of rubble. He worked slowly, carefully. One wrong move and the whole pile might shift and crush whatever was underneath. He found it after 20 minutes of digging. A small Threxian child, maybe 4 years old by human standards. It was trapped under a beam, its lower body pinned. The child looked up at Jake with large, dark eyes. 4 arms reached toward him weakly. Jake's first thought was that this was the enemy. The Threxians had killed thousands of humans. They had burned colonies and destroyed ships. This child would grow up to be one of them. But it was just a child, hurt and scared and alone. Jake made his decision. He wedged his pack under the beam for leverage and pushed. His muscles screamed with effort. The beam shifted an inch, then another. The child pulled itself free with its 4 arms, dragging its injured legs. Jake pulled out his medical kit. He had supplies for humans, not Threxians, but biology was biology. He cleaned the wounds and wrapped them. The child watched him with those big eyes, making soft clicking sounds. When Jake finished, the child reached up and touched his face with one small hand. It clicked again, a different sound this time, almost like thank you. Jake picked up the child carefully. It weighed almost nothing. He needed to find water, find better shelter. Maybe he could leave the child somewhere safe and then hide himself. He turned around and froze. 10 Threxian warriors stood in a semicircle around him. They wore combat armor and carried plasma rifles. All the weapons pointed at Jake. One Threxian stepped forward. She was taller than the others with marks of rank on her armor. Her head plates had elaborate patterns carved into them. When she saw the child in Jake's arms, she made a sound like a gasp. The child clicked excitedly and reached toward her. Jake carefully stepped forward and held out the child. The tall Threxian took it gently, holding it close with her 4 arms. She examined its injuries, running her hands over the bandages Jake had applied. Then she did something Jake never expected. She handed the child to another warrior and stepped toward Jake. The other Threxians lowered their weapons slightly, watching. The tall Threxian knelt down in front of Jake. She pressed her forehead against the ground. Her hands spread flat on the rocky soil. Jake stood very still. He had no idea what was happening. The Threxian looked up at him. She spoke in her clicking language. Then she tried again in rough, broken human words. You save my offspring, my child." She stood and placed one hand over her chest. "Jera," she said. Then she pointed at Jake. He understood. She wanted his name. "Jake Morrison," he said quietly. Jera repeated it, the sound strange in her mouth. Then she spoke to the other warriors in her own language. They lowered their weapons completely. One of them stepped forward with a translator device. Jera took it and adjusted the settings. When she spoke again, the device turned her words into human language. "Jake Morrison, you risked your life for my child during war. By the law of Kethval, the life claim, you are now family. You are claimed. You are protected." Jake stared at her. "I don't understand." Jera's mandibles moved in what might have been a smile. "You will. Come. You are safe now. You are kin." The warriors formed an escort around Jake, but their weapons stayed down. The child clicked happily from its mother's arms, reaching toward Jake again. Jake had come to this planet as a soldier expecting to hide or die. Now he was walking away with the enemy as something else entirely. He had no idea what came next. The Threxian base was built into the side of a mountain. Jake walked through corridors carved from stone, surrounded by warriors who no longer pointed weapons at him. Jera led the way, still carrying her child. Other Threxians stopped and stared as they passed. Some clicked angrily. Others simply watched with their dark, unreadable eyes. They entered a large chamber filled with screens and equipment. A massive Threxian sat at the center, his armor decorated with more symbols than Jera's. He stood when they entered, rising to his full height. He was easily 7 feet tall. Jera spoke to him quickly in their language. The big Threxian's head plates flared out in what Jake had learned was a sign of anger or stress. He pointed at Jake, and his voice rose. Jera clicked back sharply. She held up the child, showing its bandaged legs. She spoke for several minutes while the big Threxian listened. Finally, he made a sound like a sigh, and his plates lowered. Jera turned to Jake with the translator. "This is Vorth, my mate. He is not happy, but he will honor the Kethval. You saved our offspring. That is what matters most." Vorth stepped forward. He looked down at Jake for a long moment. Then he touched his own chest with one hand and Jake's shoulder with another. It was not gentle, but it was not hostile either. He spoke, and the translator changed it to human words. "You are small and weak, but you have courage. My offspring lives because of you. That means you live because of me now. This is the way." Jake nodded. He was not sure what else to do. They gave him a room. It was small but clean, with a sleeping platform and a water station. The door had no lock. Jera explained through the translator that he was not a prisoner. He could walk freely through most of the base, but he should stay close. Other Threxians might not understand the Kethval right away. "What is this Kethval exactly?" Jake asked. Jera sat down across from him. Her 4 arms moved as she spoke, like the words needed her whole body to express them. The translator worked to keep up. "In ancient times, our people lived in separate clans. We fought each other for resources and territory. Many offspring died in these wars. Then one day, a warrior from the Stone Clan saved the child of the River Clan leader from drowning. The River Clan leader was so grateful that she declared the warrior to be part of her family. She shared her resources with him, protected him. The two clans stopped fighting and became allies. Jera's mandibles moved in that smile-like expression. From that day forward, it became our most sacred law. Anyone who saves a child at risk to themselves during conflict becomes part of that child's family. Blood does not matter. Species does not matter. Only the act matters. You saved Cryx when you could have walked away. When you should have walked away, as our enemy. Now you are kin. Cryx? Jake asked. My offspring's name, my child. Jake thought about this. So I am part of your family now? Like being adopted? Yes, but more. You are protected by my clan. My resources are your resources. My enemies are your enemies. And your enemies... She paused. This is the complicated part. Your people are still at war with mine. But you cannot be at war with us now. You are inside the circle of kinship. Jake rubbed his face. His head hurt from more than just the crash now. My command thinks I am dead or captured. They will come looking for me. I know. We will deal with that when it happens. For now, you are safe here. Over the next 3 days, Jake learned about the Threxians. Jera spent hours teaching him their customs and language. The clicking sounds were difficult to make with a human mouth. But he tried. Cryx followed him everywhere, chattering in the child's version of Threxian speech. The young one's legs were healing quickly. Threxian biology was tougher than human biology in many ways. Jake learned that Threxians lived in family units called clutches. Each clutch had between 10 and 30 members. The clutches formed larger clans, and the clans made up their civilization. Family was everything to them. They only had 2 or 3 offspring in their entire lives. Each child was precious beyond measure. One evening, Vorth brought Jake to a room filled with other Threxians. They sat in a circle. Vorth introduced them as members of his clutch. Aunts, uncles, cousins. The Threxian words did not translate perfectly, but Jake understood the meaning. An older Threxian named Kelvix spoke. We must understand what happened. Tell us about your people. Why do you make war on us? Jake took a breath. We did not start this war. Your ships attacked our colony on Rigel 4. You destroyed the settlement and killed 3,000 people. That is what we were told. The Threxians clicked among themselves. Kelvix shook his head. No. Your people attacked our mining station at Velox Prime. You killed our workers and took our resources. That is what we were told. Jake stared. That is not what happened. We would never attack first. Neither would we, Jera said quietly. We are a defensive people. We only fight to protect our families. Vorth pulled up a screen. It showed reports from Threxian Command, dates, locations, casualties. Jake saw the information about Velox Prime. According to their records, human ships had fired first without warning. But our records show you attacked Rigel 4 first, Jake said, 2 months before Velox Prime. Jera and Vorth exchanged looks. Jera typed commands into her computer. She brought up their historical records. According to Threxian data, Velox Prime happened first. Rigel 4 was their response to human aggression. This does not make sense, Jake said. One of us is wrong about the timeline. Or both of us are being lied to, Jera said softly. The room went silent. Kelvix spoke first. You think someone else started this? A third party? I think we should look closely at what actually happened, Jera said. Both incidents took place near trade routes used by many species. The Yolon Consortium operates in that region. So do independent merchants and mercenaries. Jake felt cold. You are saying someone made it look like we attacked each other? I am saying we should find out the truth. Too many offspring on both sides have died. If this war is based on lies, we need to know. A warning alarm suddenly blared through the base. A Threxian warrior rushed into the room. He spoke rapidly to Vorth. Vorth turned to Jake. "Your people have found this base. A strike team is approaching. They are coming for you." Jake stood up. "I need to stop them. If they attack, people will die on both sides." Jera grabbed his arm. "You cannot. They will think you are a prisoner trying to escape. They will shoot first and ask questions later." "Then what do we do?" Jake asked. Jera looked at Vorth. Some silent communication passed between them. Vorth nodded once. "We let them in," Jera said. "We show them you are safe, and then we start telling the truth about this war." Jake heard explosions in the distance. The rescue mission had begun, and he had no idea if anyone would survive what came next. The explosions got louder. Jake ran through the corridors with Jera and Vorth close behind. Other Threxian warriors rushed past them, heading toward the base entrance. Their weapons were charged and ready. "Where is Creix?" Jake asked. "Safe in the deep chambers," Jera said. "All offspring are moved there during attacks." They reached the command center. Screens showed the outside of the base. Jake could see 5 human soldiers in combat armor moving between rocks. They were placing charges on the main entrance. These were special forces, trained for rescue missions behind enemy lines. Vorth barked orders to his warriors. "Hold your fire. Let them breach. We will meet them inside where we control the space." "No," Jake said. "If they get inside, this becomes a close-quarters fight. People will die." "They are attacking us," Vorth said. "We will defend our home." "They think they are saving me," Jake replied. "They think I am being tortured or held hostage. Let me go out. Let me show them I am okay." Jera shook her head. "Too dangerous. They will think it is a trick. They might shoot you by accident or think you are being forced to say things." The charges exploded. The base entrance collapsed inward. Smoke and dust filled the air. Jake watched the screen as the human soldiers moved into the breach, their rifles up and scanning for targets. Jake made his decision. He turned and ran. "Jake, no!" Jera shouted behind him. He did not stop. He knew the base layout now. He took a side corridor that led toward the entrance. Behind him, he heard Jera and Vorth following, along with several other Threxians. Jake reached the entrance chamber just as the human soldiers entered from the other side. They saw him immediately. 5 rifles pointed at his chest. "Morrison!" one of them shouted. "Get down!" Jake recognized the voice. Commander Paul Grant, from Intelligence. They had served together 2 years ago. "Paul, wait!" Jake called out. "Do not shoot!" "Get away from them, Jake!" Paul ordered. "We are getting you out!" Threxian warriors poured into the chamber from other doorways, dozens of them, all armed. They formed a semicircle behind Jake. Paul and his team turned, trying to cover all directions at once. They were surrounded. "Take him!" Paul shouted to his team. "Covering fire!" "No!" Jake stepped forward into the space between both groups. He spread his arms wide. "Nobody shoots! That is an order!" "You are not in command here, Morrison," Paul said, but his finger stayed off the trigger. "Paul, listen to me. I am not a prisoner. These people saved my life." "They are the enemy," Paul said. "They are probably in your head. Stockholm Syndrome. We trained for this. Just come with us, and we will get you home safe." Jera stepped forward to stand beside Jake. She had no weapon. Vorth moved to Jake's other side, also unarmed. Both of them placed their hands on Jake's shoulders. "He is under the protection of Keith Val," Jera said through her translator. "He saved my child. He is family now. You will not take him unless he wishes to go." Paul's face was hidden behind his helmet visor, but Jake could hear the confusion in his voice. "What is she talking about? Jake, are they threatening your family?" "No," Jake said. "Paul, I know how this looks, But something bigger is happening here. This war, it is not what we think it is. I need you to take a message back to Admiral Cross. Tell her the Threxians have proof that the attack on Rigel 4 might not have been them." "That is insane," Paul said. "We have evidence. We have ship signatures and weapon traces." "So do they," Jake replied. "They have evidence that we attacked first at a different location. Paul, someone set us up. Someone wanted this war to happen." "Stand aside, Morrison," Paul said. His voice was harder now. "That is your last warning." Jaira's warriors raised their weapons. The human soldiers tightened their formation. Jake could feel the tension like electricity in the air. One wrong move and everyone would start shooting. Little Creox appeared from a side passage. The child had not stayed in the safe chamber. Creox saw the standoff and ran forward, clicking in distress. The young Threxian grabbed Jake's leg and held on tight. One of Paul's soldiers jerked his rifle toward the child. Vorth roared and started to charge. Time seemed to slow down. Jake dropped to his knees and covered Creox with his body. "Everyone stop!" The chamber went silent. Jake slowly stood up, still shielding the child. Creox wrapped all four arms around Jake's neck. "Paul," Jake said quietly, "look at me. Really look. Do I look like a prisoner? This child ran to me for protection. From you. Think about what that means." Paul lowered his rifle slightly. The other soldiers looked at him, waiting for orders. "I have spent 3 days here," Jake continued. "They fed me, gave me a room, taught me their language. They shared intelligence with me. They are not monsters. They are just people who think we attacked them first." "We did not attack first," Paul said. "I know. And they say the same thing. Does not that make you wonder?" Paul was quiet for a long moment. Then he tapped his comm unit. "Grant to Valiant. Change of plans. Stand by on extraction." A voice crackled back. "Confirm, Commander, what is the situation?" "The package is secure, but he is requesting to stay. Needs more time to gather intelligence." Jaira stepped forward. She spoke directly to Paul. "Take a message to your leaders. We will meet for talks. Neutral ground. Bring your evidence. We will bring ours. Let us find out the truth together." "Admiral Cross will never agree to that," Paul said. "She will if she wants to end this war," Jaira replied. "How many more of your people must die before you ask why you are fighting?" Paul looked at Jake. "Is this really what you want? To stay here?" "For now, yes," Jake said. "Paul, I have found something important here. A chance to stop the killing. I need you to trust me." Paul nodded slowly. 48 hours. Then I am coming back for you whether you like it or not." He signaled his team. "We are leaving. Weapons down, but stay alert." The soldiers backed toward the breach, keeping their eyes on the Threxians. Vorth ordered his warriors to lower their weapons as well. Nobody fired. When Paul reached the exit, he paused. "Jake, be careful. If you are wrong about them—" "I am not wrong," Jake said. Paul disappeared into the smoke and dust. The sound of their transport ship taking off echoed through the mountain moments later. Jaira let out a breath. "That was very brave, or very stupid." "Probably both," Jake said. He looked down at Creox, who was still clinging to him. The child clicked softly, the sound full of trust. Vorth placed a heavy hand on Jake's shoulder. "You chose us over your own people. Why?" Jake thought about it. "Because I think my people would want me to stop a war if I could, and because Creox deserves to grow up without fighting." Jaira's mandibles moved in her version of a smile. "Now the real work begins. We have 48 hours to find proof. And we need to convince both our leaders to listen. That may be harder than stopping the fight today." Jake nodded. "Then we better get started." Jake spent the next 12 hours in front of computer screens with Jaira and a Threxian named Pelcor, who specialized in analyzing ship data. They pulled every piece of information about the first two attacks. Rigel 4 on the human side, Velox Prime on the Threxian side. "Look at this," Pelcor said, pointing to the screen. "The ship signatures from the Rigel 4 attack. They match standard Threxian vessels, but the power outputs are wrong, too high. Our ships do not generate that much energy." Jake leaned closer. "Could they be modified ships?" "Possible," Pelcor clicked thoughtfully. "Or they could be different ships made to look like ours." Jera pulled up similar data from the Velox Prime attack. "Same thing here. The ships appeared to be human military vessels, but the weapon signatures do not match human plasma cannons exactly. Close, but not perfect." "Someone built fake ships," Jake said, "or modified real ones to look like they belong to us." "The Yolan Consortium has that capability," Jera said. "They are arms dealers and mercenaries. They have shipyards in the border regions. They could build anything if the price was right." Jake sat back. "But why? What do they gain from starting a war between humans and Threxians?" Pelcor brought up financial records. "Weapons sales. Both our governments have spent billions on military equipment in the past 3 years. Look at these purchase orders. Much of it came from Yolan suppliers or companies that Yolan controls through shell corporations. They started a war to sell weapons to both sides," Jake said slowly. "That is insane." "That is profit," Jera said bitterly. "They do not care how many die as long as they get rich." Jake stood up. "We need to take this to both governments. Set up a meeting. If we can show them this evidence together, maybe they will listen." 2 days later, Jake stood on neutral ground for the first time in 3 years. The meeting was held on Waypoint Station, an independent trading hub that belonged to no government. The station's council had agreed to host peace talks after heavy persuasion from both sides. Admiral Helen Cross arrived with a full security detail. She was a stern woman in her 50s, with gray hair pulled back tight. She looked at Jake like he was a stranger. "Lieutenant Commander Morrison, I am told you have gone native." "I have found the truth, Admiral," Jake replied. "That is all." Jera and Vorth stood beside him, along with members of the Threxian High Council. The two groups faced each other across a large table. Guards from both sides lined the walls, watching each other with distrust. Admiral Cross sat down. "You have 20 minutes to convince me this is not a waste of time." Jake nodded to Pelcor, who activated a holographic display. Images of ships appeared in the air above the table. "These are the vessels that attacked Rigel 4. Notice the power signatures. They are wrong for real Threxian ships." A human officer named Colonel Danny Rogers leaned forward. "How do we know you did not fake this data?" "Because we have the same problem," Jera said. She activated her own display. "The ships that hit Velox Prime claim to be human, but their weapons do not match human technology exactly." For the next hour, they presented their evidence: ship movements, financial records showing Yolan profits, communications intercepts. Slowly, the anger in the room changed to something else: doubt, uncertainty. Admiral Cross sat very still. Finally, she spoke. "You are saying we have been fighting the wrong enemy for 3 years?" "Yes," Jake said. "Thousands have died," Cross continued. Her voice was tight with emotion. "Thousands of my people, based on lies." "Thousands of ours as well," Vorth said. His plates were flat against his head in sorrow. "Our offspring. Our families." Colonel Rogers slammed his hand on the table. "Then we make the Yolan pay. We hit them together. Show them what happens when you start a war." "No," Jake said firmly. "More violence is not the answer. We need to expose them. Show the galaxy what they did. Let their own customers turn against them. Hit them where it actually hurts, in their profits." An older Threxian named Elder Keshava spoke up. "The human is right. We must be better than those who wronged us. Justice, not revenge." Admiral Cross looked at Jera. "Can we trust each other?" After everything that has happened? Jake Morrison trusted us when he had no reason to, Jera said. He saved my child when that child was his enemy. If he can build a bridge, so can we. Cross nodded slowly. Then we will try. A ceasefire first, then formal negotiations. But this will take time. There are people on both sides who will not accept peace. She was right. 3 days later, while Jake was helping arrange the next round of talks, the attack came. Extremists from both sides, humans and Threxians who wanted the war to continue, planted a bomb in the station's conference center. Jake was there with Creix when the warning came through. Jera had brought her child to show that even the youngest could participate in building peace. "Bomb threat!" a station security officer shouted. "Everyone evacuate now!" People started running. Jake grabbed Creix and headed for the exit. He could see Jera ahead, pushing through the crowd. Then he saw it. A small device attached to a support column, lights blinking faster and faster. Jake knew immediately they would not make it. The bomb was too close and the exit was too far. He did the only thing he could think of. He threw himself on top of Creix, using his body as a shield. The explosion was massive. Jake felt heat and pressure and pain all at once. The world went white, then red, then black. He woke up 3 days later in a hospital bed. His body hurt everywhere. Bandages covered his arms and chest. Medical equipment beeped steadily around him. Jera sat beside the bed. When she saw his eyes open, she made a sound like a sob. "You are awake. You are alive." "Creix," Jake croaked. "Safe. You protected my child again. Took the blast yourself." Tears ran from her eyes, clear liquid just like human tears. "The doctor said you nearly died. Your organs were damaged. Burns covered half your body." "But I am alive," Jake said. "Because of both human and Threxian medicine," Jera said. "We worked together to save you, just like we must work together to save our people." The door opened. Admiral Cross entered with Vorth. Both looked grim but determined. "The attack failed," Cross said. "You saved that child, and the station's security found 2 more bombs before they went off. The extremists have been caught. Both human and Threxian terrorists working together to keep the war going. Like the Yolon made us fight each other. Now extremists try to keep us fighting," Vorth said. "But they failed. You showed everyone that peace is possible, that we can protect each other's children." Cross stepped closer to the bed. "Morrison, when you recover, I am offering you a new position. Earth's first ambassador to the Threxian Empire. If you want it." Jake looked at Jera. She clicked softly, her version of a laugh. "And I will be our ambassador to humanity. We will build this peace together." Jake smiled despite the pain. "I accept." Jake spent 6 weeks in the medical facility. It was a strange place, half human technology and half Threxian. Doctors from both species worked side by side, learning from each other. They had saved Jake's life by combining their knowledge. Human surgeons repaired his organs while Threxian healers used their advanced tissue regeneration methods on his burns. Creix visited every day. The young Threxian would climb onto the bed carefully and click softly, telling Jake stories in the mixed language they had developed together. Half Threxian, half human words. A new language for a new kind of friendship. "You are my clutch brother now," Creix would say. "That means forever." Jake smiled each time. "Yes, forever." The ceasefire held. Both governments released statements exposing the Yolon Consortium's role in starting the war. The evidence was overwhelming. Trading partners cut ties with Yolon. Their stock prices collapsed. Criminal charges were filed in a dozen systems. The conspiracy fell apart under the weight of truth. But the real work was just beginning. 3 years of war had created deep wounds. Families on both sides had lost loved ones. Trust would take time to rebuild. On the day Jake was released from the hospital, Jera came to walk with him. They moved slowly through the corridors of what was now called Unity Station. The old Waypoint Station had been renamed after the failed bombing. "There is something we must discuss," Jera said. "The formal ceremony, to make your place in my clutch official by both our laws." "I thought that already happened," Jake said. "The Keth Val. The Keth Val made you kin in the moment of crisis, but now we are at peace. We should celebrate it properly. Let both our peoples see what is possible." The ceremony was held 2 weeks later on a new colony world called Haven. It was a planet that had been fought over during the war, but never fully occupied by either side. Now it would belong to both, the first shared world. Hundreds attended, human diplomats and officers, Threxian clan leaders and council members. News crews from a dozen species recorded everything. This was history being made. Jake stood in the center of a circle. He wore a formal uniform, half-human military dress and half-Threxian ceremonial robes. Jera had helped him design it, something that honored both cultures. Jera and Vorth stood before him with Kriex between them. Admiral Cross stood to Jake's right as his witness. She had agreed to represent humanity in this moment. Elder HFY, the oldest member of the Threxian Council, spoke first. Her voice was translated for the humans present. "We gather to honor an ancient tradition, the Keth Val, the life claim. Jake Morrison saved the offspring of Commander Jera at great risk during a time of war. By our oldest laws, he became kin in that moment. Today we celebrate that bond and make it official in the eyes of all." Admiral Cross spoke next. "Humanity recognizes this union. Jake Morrison acted with courage and compassion when he could have chosen hatred. He built a bridge when we saw only enemies. We honor his choice and support his new family." Kriex stepped forward. The young Threxian had practiced this part many times. Kriex held up a woven band made of threads from both human and Threxian materials, different colors twisted together into something new and beautiful. "Jake Morrison," Kriex said in clear human words, "you are my clutch brother. You protected me twice. You gave your life for mine. I give you this band to show you are part of us, forever." Jake knelt down so Kriex could tie the band around his wrist. The young Threxian's 4 hands worked carefully to make the knot secure. Then Jera and Vorth each placed a hand on Jake's shoulders. They spoke together in Threxian. The translator converted their words. "You are clan. You are clutch. You are kin. Our home is your home. Our struggles are your struggles. Our joys are your joys. From this day until the end of days." Jake felt tears in his eyes. "I accept. I am honored to be part of your family." The crowd erupted in sounds. Human applause mixed with Threxian clicking. 2 species celebrating together. The reception afterward was the first true social gathering between humans and Threxians. People from both sides talked nervously at first, then with growing comfort. Food from both cultures was shared. Children, both human and Threxian, played together under the watchful eyes of their parents. Colonel Rogers approached Jake with a Threxian officer named Sekvil. They had served on opposite sides during the war. Now they were working together to coordinate the joint security force for Haven. "Never thought I would call a Threxian a friend," Rogers said. "But here we are." Sekvil clicked in amusement. "I feel the same about humans. Strange how easy it is once you try." Jake looked around the gathering. He saw Admiral Cross in deep conversation with Elder HFY. Vorth was teaching a group of human engineers about Threxian ship design. Everywhere he looked, people were connecting. 6 months later, Jake stood in front of a classroom. 20 students sat before him. 10 humans, 10 Threxians, ages 6 to 8, the first integrated school in the galaxy. "Good morning," Jake said in human language. Then he repeated it in Threxian clicks. "Good morning, Teacher Jake. The children responded together, each in their own language. "Today we are going to learn about the war," Jake said. "Not to make you angry or sad, but so you understand what happens when people stop talking to each other. When they forget that those who look different are still people." A small human girl named Sophie raised her hand. "My dad says you are a hero. Is that true?" Jake shook his head. "I just made a choice. When I found Cryx under that rubble, I could have walked away. I could have said this is not my problem. But I looked at a hurt child and I could not leave. That is not being a hero. That is just being a decent person." A young Threxian clicked a question. "Will there be more wars?" "I hope not," Jake said honestly. "But that depends on all of you. You are the first generation growing up with friends from both species. You will not see each other as enemies. You will just see each other. That is how we prevent the next war. By teaching our children to see the person first, not the species." After class, Cryx waited outside. The young Threxian was growing quickly now, almost as tall as Jake's chest. Cryx had started attending the school as a teaching assistant, helping the younger Threxian students adjust. "Good lesson today," Cryx said. "The human children are learning our language quickly. They are young. Everything is easier when you are young." They walked together through the colony. Haven had grown rapidly. Buildings in both architectural styles stood side by side. Mixed neighborhoods where human and Threxian families lived as neighbors. There were still problems, still moments of misunderstanding. But people were trying. Jake received a message on his communicator. It was from Jera. More families were requesting human liaisons. Other Threxian clans wanted to learn from what had happened with Cryx. They wanted to build their own bridges. "Looks like we will need more teachers," Jake said to Cryx. "Good," Cryx replied. "The more people who learn to see each other, the better." That evening, Jake stood on a hill overlooking the colony. The sun was setting, painting the sky in colors that looked beautiful on any world. He could see children playing in the distance, human and Threxian together. Their laughter carried on the wind. He thought about the shuttle crash that started everything. How scared he had been, how certain he was that Threxians were monsters. One choice had changed everything. One child saved. One hand extended in friendship instead of hate. Jake touched the band on his wrist that Cryx had tied there. It was faded now, but still strong. Like the peace they were building. It would take work. It would take time. But it was possible. He had started as a soldier. Now he was something more. A teacher, an ambassador, a brother, a bridge between worlds. And somewhere in the colony below, more bridges were being built every day. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. Sonnet 4.5